Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
Yeah, so let's segue into the research. I mean, you sort of alluded to this at the top of the call. I mean, one of the number one business challenge that small businesses consistently, this is true for many enterprises as well, they consistently cite in surveys is new customer acquisition, much higher than retention. That's the big thing that they're focused on. And yet, your survey reveals that they do a bad job with warm leads, with live leads. And so tell us, this is no surprise to anybody who's tried to get in touch with a contractor, right, who doesn't respond or who takes forever to respond. Tell us what the survey was and what your hypothesis was and what you found at a high level.
Yeah, the hypothesis was that small businesses struggle with responding to leads and somehow almost place leads. Some of it, I think, because it comes in via email, and so many small business owners are phone call focused, that they almost treat these as just like second or third tier leads, that they're not as great because they didn't call, right? It's not. They feel like phone calls, because I'm on there and I can control it and it's an active conversation, that it's this layup of a lead or so much stronger. So in doing the research, what we set out is we basically, as you put it, Greg, when we were talking earlier, we mystery shopped 225 businesses across three categories: home services, professional services, and medical. And we went to their contact forms on their site, not a specific, some sites will have a lead form or a free estimate form, something like that. But we went to their contact page and filled out their contact form with a very strong buying message, right? Where we're explaining them, if it was a landscaper, we'd say, hey, we're looking to put in a 30 by 15 foot patio with pavers and a fire pit. Can we meet or schedule an estimate? If we're reaching out a dentist, we'd say, hey, we just moved to the area. I have two kids that we need to get a dentist for. What does it look like to schedule or to see if you're a fit for that? So very strong buying signals on these reach outs, not just a, hey, how are you doing? Or not a lot of information. We tried to be as strong as possible.
Bottom of the funnel, totally bottom of the funnel.
Yes, exactly.
You weren't selling them an SEO audit.
Yeah, no, not at all.
You weren't threatening to blackmail them if they didn't pay you to take for fake reviews.
Yeah, I mean, the list can go on other types of contact form submissions we receive. We also, in selecting these businesses, right, we did category city searches, and we're only using those that appeared in the top 10 in the map local finder results. They had to have at least 25 reviews. On average, I think we're somewhere around 130, 140 some reviews on average. So we wanted to do this with businesses that are actually appear to be successful, should have some processes around this and are not just bare bones.
Optimized GBPs, all of that.
Yes. So in doing this, right from the bat, there was a couple of things that we were tracking. One, how many forms were broken. And we saw just under 5%, 4.8% of forms were broken. And some of this I attribute to, if we went down to a lower level of site, that the business had less reviews, ranked lower, weren't putting a lot of effort in their digital marketing, I think we'd see even more of that. But to me, that's still surprising when, for a majority of these sites, a contact form might be the only form or conversion method that they have on their website. And for it not to be showing, right, a couple of them, you'd see the embed code from the WordPress plugin sitting there on the page and not rendering the form. A couple, we saw people that probably redesigned their site, and when you hit the submit button, you can just see that it's just going to the # URL, that it wasn't even connected to submit the form. So a variety of those. And I will say, in being a good Samaritan of the internet, I reached out to all of those and let them know their contact form wasn't working. So at least, if anything, we tried to repair some of the internet a little bit in it.
Forms are brittle, though, right? I mean, there's just too many moving pieces between email, the PHP, the HTML, the hosting service.
Unless you choose a good website platform like a Squarespace or a Square or whatever, like those forms never break. I mean,
Yep.
part and
Right.
parcel of everything they're doing. So
Yeah.
No,
And
it's
to
true.
a certain extent, some of that was part of the guiding reason behind Leadferno. When I built sites, you cobbled together all the contact methods. You had this plugin or this service for a contact form. You needed this to display a map and all those different things. So with Leadferno, what we continue to go towards is like, how do we give them the contact solution in a box? And so if they just plug in a couple of line of codes, configure on our side, we give them a contact form, a text messaging tool, a request a call tool, a click to call that gets tracked, all of those elements in one.
Okay, so we heard that 5% of these forms were broken, but the real findings are about the response times, right? And how many people responded and how long it took them. So why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, and even to just touch on the first layer of that, something that surprises me because it's so drop dead simple is we only saw that 15.6% of these forms sent an auto reply email once they were filled out. To me,
1.5.
yes,
1.5.
15.6%. Yeah. So this is just the most basic thing, just to immediately send a confirmation and say, hey, we got your message. We want to help you. Here's an expectation on when a human is going to get back to you to deal with this. And the fact that almost 85% of these sites weren't doing this, that is likely a feature that's there in their form. It's just not set up, or their web designer or marketing company didn't set it up. It's just the most basic thing. And to me, that's what keeps people from, I've definitely filled out forms that go out into oblivion. And within a certain amount of time, I keep looking for a solution then, because I have zero confidence. Like, where did this go? Is it going to the email of a fired employee or someone that left? We saw multiple responses where people are like, hey, a week later, hey, we just got this. It was in our spam folder. Sorry about that. Like, these are all things that happen to contact forms delivered by email. And to get to your question, Greg, the response time, right? If we averaged everything together, what we saw overall is it was 17 hours and 49 minutes was the average response time
Across
to a
categories.
contact form. Yeah, across all categories that were out there.
You did 3. You did medical, home services, and what was the third category?
Professional services. So
Professional
like
services.
lawyers,
Right.
accountants and CPAs,
Okay.
real estate. So yeah.
I was going to ask you, did somebody win? Was there a category that was a clear leader and one that was a clear laggard?
So professional was a little bit below the average at 17 hours and 5 minutes. And then healthcare was the longest at 19 hours and 24 minutes.
The problem with averages in this situation, though, as I've seen with clients, is that the real question is how many do they get to in the first hour or two, right? That
Yep.
an average, if somebody takes 10 days to respond to one client, that screws up a lot of minute responses on an average basis, right? And so to me, the more relevant is speed to lead, that you call it, and first human contact. Those are really, because if you can get that number from 20% to 80%, and you screw up 20%, or there's some reason internally you can't deal with them, you know what I mean? So it's hard to look at an average like this as a truly.
But directionally, though, I think it's correct. That most of these businesses don't respond quickly is sort of the point, I think.
Yeah, it's too long, and I'll get to some of the breakdowns of those responses to like how do they bucket, just as Mike's talking about. But the other high level stat that probably could be the headline of this research is 42% never replied once. Not a single reply, right? And so
that's
when you
unambiguous, right? That's half your customers, you didn't answer them, right?
Yep. And when we break that down across categories, we saw home services was actually the best. They were at 39.2%. Then medical at a flat 40%. And then professional services at 50.9%. So when you consider that to the response time, it was like, all right, half of the professional services never replied. Those that did just slightly did a better job than what we saw as the average as a whole.
The astonishing thing here is, one of the things that I talk to a lot of people about, and we've all talked about, is the sort of complexity of digital marketing for small businesses now. There are too many channels. You can't master all of them, tracking them, creating content for them. It's really hard. And this is the opposite of that, right? This is the opposite in every way. This is somebody coming to them. This is somebody who's a warm lead, really a hot lead. this is a simple thing. I mean, notwithstanding the sort of fragility of the form and some of the technical issues, just the response time, just recognizing what this is and then responding to it in a way that is relatively timely is a really simple thing. I mean, conceptually and otherwise.
You would think.
and yet, as I said, these businesses are all complaining about it, how they don't have enough business and how they, they want new leads and all of that. And this is free traffic in a certain way, or not free traffic, but there's no, I mean, there is presumably some investment, some marketing investment behind this, but in your case, they weren't paying for any of this, and so these are sort of really, really valuable, low cost, relatively speaking, leads that they're just not addressing.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.